in which the last dangling threads of our story play out in the aftermath of Anna's death. Chapter 16. Experienced in dialectics, Sergei Ivanovitch, without objecting, at once shifted the conversation to a different area. Yes, if you want to learn the spirit of the people in an arithmetical sense, that is certainly very difficult to achieve. Voting has not been introduced among us, and it cannot be introduced because it does not express the will of the people. But there are other ways of doing it. It is felt in the air. It is felt in the heart. Not to mention those undercurrents that have stirred up the stagnant sea of the people and are clear to any unprejudiced person. Look at society in the narrow sense. All the most diverse parties in the world of the intelligentsia, so hostile before, have merged into one. All discord is ended. All social organs are saying one and the same thing. Everyone has felt the elemental power that has got them up and is carrying them in one direction. It's the newspapers that all say the same thing, said the prince. That's true, and it's so much the same that it's like frogs before a thunderstorm. You can't hear anything on account of them. Frogs or no frogs, I don't publish the newspapers and don't want to defend them. I'm talking about the one-mindedness of the world of the intelligentsia, said Sergei Ivanovitch, turning to his brother. Levin was about to reply, but the old prince interrupted him. Well, about this one-mindedness something else might be said, he observed. There's this dear son-in-law of mine, Stepan Arkadyevitch. You know him. He's now getting a post as member of the committee of the commission and whatever else I don't remember. Only there's nothing to do there. What? Dolly, it's not a secret. And the salary's 8,000. Try asking him whether his work is useful, and he'll prove to you that it's very much needed, and he's a truthful man. But then it's impossible not to believe the usefulness of 8,000. Yes. He asked me to tell Darya Alexandrovna that he got the post, Sergei Ivanovitch said with displeasure, thinking that the prince had spoken beside the point. And it's the same with the one-mindedness of the newspapers. It's been explained to me as soon as there's a war, their income doubles. How can they not think the destiny of the people and the Slavs and all the rest of it? There are many newspapers I don't like, but that is unfair, said Sergei Ivanovitch. I would make just one condition, the prince went on. Alphonse Karr put it splendidly before the war with Prussia. You think war is necessary? Fine. Send anyone who preaches war to a special front-line legion, into the assault, into the attack ahead of everyone. The editors would be a fine sight, Katavasov said with a loud laugh, picturing to himself the editors he knew in the Select Legion. Why, they'd run away, said Dolly. They'd just be a hindrance. If they run, get them from behind with canister shot, or Cossacks with whips, said the prince. That's a joke, and not a very nice joke, if you'll forgive me, Prince, said Sergei Ivanovitch. I don't see it as a joke. It's... Levin began, but Sergei Ivanovitch interrupted him. Each member of society is called upon to do what is proper to him, he said, thinking people do their work by expressing public opinion, and the unanimity and full expression of public opinion is the merit of the press, and at the same time a joyous fact. 20 years ago we would have been silent, but now we hear the voice of the Russian people. ready to rise as one man and sacrifice themselves for their oppressed brothers. That is a great step and a pledge of strength. But it's not just to sacrifice themselves, it's also to kill Turks, Levine said timidly. The people sacrifice and are always prepared to sacrifice themselves for their soul, not for murder, he added, involuntarily connecting the conversation with the thoughts that occupied him so much. How? For the soul? You understand that for a natural scientist that is a troublesome expression. What is this soul? Katavasov said, smiling. Ah, you know. By God, I haven't the slightest idea, Katavasov said with a loud laugh. I have brought not peace but a sword, says Christ. Sergei Ivanovich objected on his side, simply quoting, as if it were the most understandable thing, the very passage of the gospel that had always disturbed Levine most of all. That's quite so, the old man, who was standing near them, again repeated, responding to the accidental glance cast at him. No, my dear, you're demolished. Demolished, completely demolished, Katavasov cried merrily. Levine flushed with vexation, and not because he was demolished, but because he had not restrained himself and had begun to argue. No, I can't argue with them, he thought. They're wearing impenetrable armor, and I am naked. He saw that his brother and Katavasov were not to be persuaded, and still less did he find it possible for himself to agree with them. What they preached was that very pride of reason which had nearly ruined him. He could not agree with the idea that dozens of people, his brother among them, had the right, on the basis of what was told them by some hundreds of fine-talking volunteers coming to the capitals, to say that they in the newspapers expressed the will and thought of the people, a thought that expressed itself in revenge and murder. He could not agree with it, because he did not see the expression of these thoughts in the people among whom he lived, nor did he find these thoughts in himself, and he could not consider himself anything else but one of those persons who made up the Russian people. And above all, because, while neither he nor the people knew or could know what the common good consisted in, he knew firmly that it was only possible to attain that common good by strictly fulfilling the law of the good that was open to every man, and therefore he could not desire war and preach it for any common purposes whatsoever. He said, together with Mikhailitch and the people who expressed their thoughts in the legend about the sealing of the Varangians, "Be our princes and rule over us. We joyfully promise full obedience. All labors, all humiliations, all sacrifices we take upon ourselves, but we will not judge or decide." And now, according to Sergei Ivanovitch's words, the people had renounced this right, purchased at so dear a cost. He also wanted to say that if public opinion is as infallible judge, then why was a revolution or a commune not as legitimate as the movement in defense of the Slavs? But these were all thoughts that could not decide anything. Only one thing could unquestionably be seen, that in that present moment the argument irritated Sergei Ivanovitch, and therefore it was bad to argue, and Levine fell silent and drew his visitor's attention to the fact that clouds were gathering, and that they had better go home before it rained. If you enjoy this format, please leave a like and subscribe and return tomorrow for the next chapter.